Hello there Internet and welcome to a special episode of The Phone Show. The Samsung Galaxy Alpha has just been announced, attempting to compete in a packed smartphone market. Here are our experts Gareth Beavis and John McCann to tell you all about it and its competitors.
Hello, we're back for another phone show. It's going to be very exciting. John McCann's here, I'm here, there's a phone here. John, what's happening this week?
Well, the Samsung Galaxy Alpha has been announced. It's official, it actually exists.
Whoop, whoop.
We've also got the Samsung Galaxy S5 Mini in at the moment, and we're wondering, actually, how many rivals is the iPhone 6 going to have? Because there's even more rumoured. 8.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Okay, and that's the end of it. No, so let's start off with the Galaxy Alpha. It's a very exciting phone, I think, mostly because we tipped it for so long. We thought it was going to be the Galaxy Prime. I know we've covered this already before, but actually seeing it turn up now, was there anything that surprised you? Anything that you thought, hang on, I thought that would have been better or worse or different?
It's incredibly thin, 6.7 millimeters, making it more slender than the S5 that it's sort of based on, and the iPhone, although the iPhone 6 is rumoured to be a lot thinner than the iPhone 5S as well. So in terms of design and the metal band around the outside, Samsung has really sort of ploughed a design field here, although it still sticks with the polycarbonate on the back, sort of similar to the Lumia 930.
Yeah.
So it hasn't gone completely metal, but it's a significant step forward.
And what did you think when we saw the rumours for quite a long time, thinking about it's going to be all metal, then it went down to a metal band, and we saw thousands of leaks of this phone. So the key question really is the Galaxy Alpha going to be an iPhone 6 competitor? I mean, that's what it's there for, right?
Well, in terms of size, it looks to be a direct competitor to the iPhone 6. Same size screen, similar sort of power behind the scenes, but the iPhone 6 will be Apple's pinnacle of smartphone design and power, and the Alpha isn't that for Samsung. It's the Galaxy S5 still. It has better specs on paper, it's got more power.
The Galaxy S5 is the flagship, you mean? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The Alpha is still a premium device from Samsung, but it's not their flagship. And the iPhone 6 will be compared to the flagships of the Android world, so the S5, the One M8. So the Alpha sort of falls into a sort of funny no man's land. It's better in terms of specs and design than the sort of mini series that we're seeing, like the S5 Mini here, but it's not quite reaching the top end of the Android scale. So
what's Samsung doing? I mean, here's the key question. You're right, it doesn't seem to fit, but it's the best looking phone Samsung's made. I think that's quite easy to see. I mean, it looks a bit like some older devices, but yeah, it's really exciting on that front. It doesn't have the same. The camera is lower, the battery is lower, the screen is lower tech than the S5, and you feel to have a new thing, especially called the Alpha, which kind of gives a feeling of the mythos behind the top device. You know, like HTC's the one. It's that kind of, it's the best, and it's clearly not. It's just a really well-designed fashion phone. It was called the Galaxy F in theory because of the Galaxy fashion, and in that respect, it will compete against the iPhone. But Samsung's just had this big campaign in America about talking about how it's already got a bigger screen, it's already got the screen size, it's already had a bigger phone for ages, and it's quite proud of the fact that it's been pushing this forward and now Apple's catching up. Does that not send mixed messages? I mean, what's Samsung really trying to do here? What's your thoughts?
Samsung, I think, is actually testing the water with the design. It's like, well, this is the first sort of metal phone that they've made, and they're just seeing what the reaction is like to it. Is this something that they will continue into next year with the S6? This could be our first glimpse of what the S6 may be based on.
And we're already hearing that the Galaxy S6 could be all metal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's already started trickling out.
Well, I mean, it's claimed that this is all metal as well, because if you take off the plastic cover, the whole frame is actually metal, although, you know, depends what you want to class as an all-metal body.
It all being metal?
Yeah.
Like an HTC One M8.
Of course.
Okay, that's got a screen, but take that away. It is all metal. There's a huge difference between the two. You can't say this is all metal. The same you can't say the Nokia is all metal.
Yeah.
Great, it makes it inside. If it doesn't feel like it is, then it isn't. Yeah. That's the simple fact of it. The iPhone 6 will feel, it'll feel premium, it'll feel well packaged all together, and it's that kind of thing that's really important. I just feel, I don't know, the Galaxy Alpha will sell well because it's being pushed by Samsung. It wants to sell it, it wants to put it in as many stores as it can, and it wants to put a big marketing push behind it, so it will sell. That's just the way it is, and it will be a good iPhone competitor because some people don't want a big screen. I think a lot of people who haven't tried a bigger screen phone are probably saying, oh, I don't want to go larger, and they haven't really tried it. I think that's really important. You find a lot of people that actually do get a Galaxy S5 or One M8 or anything like that go, actually, I do realise this bigger screen is good. So I think, but there is still that subset of people that don't want to have a huge device that doesn't quite fit their hand, and there is a market for that, and I think you're right. The Alpha will be that in some ways, but it's just not the device Samsung needs to be making.
There's also rumours saying that the Galaxy Note 4 will follow a similar design path as the Alpha, and again, that would be another.
That would be fine though.
That would be fine, but people are saying again that it's another stepping stone towards an all-metal S6 next year.
If the S5 had been, if the Alpha and the S5 had come together for when the S5 was launched, we would have lauded that phone as a really big step forward for Samsung. Not the full step, but it would have been a better than just the plastic nonsense that came out. That's a simple fact of it. The specs were great, the design wasn't. And if Samsung had shown some sort of leanings towards it back in February, that would have been fine. The Alpha comes in, just confuses everything, and it needs to make more of it. The Note 4 doing that, that's a great idea. If the Galaxy S5 is still the pinnacle, then what, and the Galaxy Alpha exists, what's the S5 Mini doing here?
Well, the S5 Mini has a...
We know what's here, it's here on review.
It has a more obvious place because the Minis isn't a new market anymore. We've had the S3 Mini, then the S4, now the S5, and HTC has its own, Sony has its own, LG even have the G3 Beat now.
Yeah,
so
it had the G2 Mini as well.
Yeah, and so it's a developing market, and it's basically giving people who can't quite afford the flagship phones something which is similar in design and looks, but the specs usually suffer a bit to make that lower price point. I mean, the anomaly there is the Z1 Compact, which does borrow the power and the camera, although it is slightly more expensive and it still loses out in the screen.
That raises a good point. I mean, in reality, these are different phones. I mean, you've got the HTC One M8 and the HTC One Mini 2.
Yep.
When the HTC One Mini 2 is really, if you're doing it properly, the HTC One M8 Mini, because it looks the same, it's got the same kind of UI and everything. It doesn't have a duo camera, which seems to be the reason why it's been dropped as the name. And HTC's gone for a sequel rather than a cut-down version. So what point do you make it? What point does a phone become a mini version of another phone? Because Sony, you said, they've got the Z1 Compact, which was one of the few phones that took all the kind of the power and all of the specs really of the main device and shoved them down to a smaller frame, bar the screen and battery. It was essentially the same phone made smaller. Sony's got its M range. It's got the M2. The M2 Aqua's just been announced. That's its kind of mini competitor, isn't it? Is that not what the situation is? I mean,
no. The M range comes in at a price tier below the S5 Mini and Co. These are sort of mid to high tier, bridging the gap between the middle and the flagships, and providing customers who want a high-end phone but maybe don't want the size or can't quite afford the very top. And the S5 Mini, for example, does borrow quite a lot of features from the S5. It's got the fingerprint scanner, which admittedly is very poor. It's got heart rate monitor on the back. It's got the new TouchWiz UI.
You love heart rate monitors, don't you?
The design is very close to the S5. Yeah. So if you do like that, and some people do, then it's a great option. Is it the best mini handset? Well, I reviewed the HTC One Mini 2, and I'd say that that was a better handset. It was just a bit more fluid.
You didn't like that phone still anyway, did you, really? I mean, compared to what it could have been in your eyes.
No, all these minis do seem just lacking a little bit, especially when they're so obviously linked to their bigger brothers. Yeah. But then you get to it and you go, oh, this looks like an S5, this looks like an M8, and then the on-screen experience doesn't quite live up to that, and it does disappoint slightly.
But people don't know what the on-screen experience really is like for the big phone.
And that's me coming from a high-end flagship down to a couple of tiers, whereas a lot of people will be upgrading possibly from phones which are in lower tiers to these, and then so the progression the other way is not so much of an issue. You'll fire it up and it'll be fast enough and it'll be fluid enough. It's just when it comes to side-by-side comparisons, the S5 Mini isn't quite as fluid as the One Mini 2. It doesn't quite have the power of the Z1 Compact, but they're still all solid phones.
I mean, so that leaves kind of an open goal for Sony, because we're hearing rumours that the Z1 Compact will be refreshed as the Z3 Compact, missing the Z2 altogether. Yeah. I mean, what have you heard about that? What do you think? That's going to surely be a great move for Sony if you can make a really powerful, well-packaged, fluid phone.
It looks like they're going to repeat the trick of the Z1 Compact of trying to cram the power and the camera of the rumoured Xperia Z3 that we're also apparently going to see.
So, but you think that, like you said, the key thing here is the price. The price point goes into the market. You've got, as you rightly said, probably the M series is kind of, if you've got this is the flagship tier. Yep. Then you've got the minis. Yep. Then you've got the mid-range ones where you get a lot of Huawei's in there as well. And then beyond that, you've got a lot of Sony's got its E range. A lot of brands have got really low spec, very cheap phones. And where the kind of like the Lumias are absolutely cleaning up the Moto Gs. Yeah. But so if you've got these, you've got the two here. Are you staying with me here? The mini series here. Surely Sony will have the best specs, the best of everything. That should lead to the best sales.
That should, but the Z1 Compact was slightly more expensive than the rivals last time round, so we could quite easily see the Z3 compact also being slightly more expensive than the likes of the S5 Mini and the One Mini 2, which, you know, puts another bit of doubt in consumers' mind. Do I spend the extra money on the Z3 compact, or if I'm already spending that much money, why don't I spend just a bit more and get the flagship version?
I don't want a big phone. There you are. That's my reason.
Okay. That's good.
Okay, so to round up, really, I think the key thing is price for that. I mean, spec-wise, it's often the best, and unfortunately, Samsung's marketing machine means Samsung, no matter what you want to buy. That's probably the one most people go for because they've heard the most about it, and people want to feel confident in the smartphone they buy. So iPhone 6 probably about a month away. Which one do you think is going to be the biggest competitor on the shelves? Do you still think it's going to be the flagships?
Yeah, it's the phones that the companies shout about. You don't see Sony shouting about its M series too much. It shouts about its Xperia Z series, the high-end flagships, that's what it's all about. The iPhone 6, when it comes out, that will be Apple's pinnacle smartphone design. That's what it's going to tell the world is the best smartphone ever and does everything that you ever want it to do. Yeah. And that's exactly what Samsung will tell you about theirs, HTC will tell you about theirs, LG, etc., etc. So it's still going to be those high-end flagship Android handsets. And because the iPhone 6 looks to be growing in size, then it's closing the gap. 4.7 inches, most of the flagships on Android now are around the 5-inch mark. Yeah. So that gap is closed significantly, whereas last year we had a 4-inch iPhone 5S and 5-inch Android flagship, so the gulf was a lot bigger. So while we have the Alpha and the Mini handsets, they're still going to be a category below the iPhone 6.
So that's it for another phone show. We've talked mid-range marvels, the Mini market, all the M's. We didn't have any M&M's. That would have made a lot of sense. But thanks for sticking around. And John, any final thoughts?
Just like, comment, subscribe, the usual, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.